Revelation reveals the cities that will fall first under the beast. Picture this. Nearly 2,000 years ago, an elderly man sits alone on a rocky island prison and warns of a certain beast. You will be shocked when you find the two nations that fall under the beast. Number 1. Babylon. To describe the final empire that will oppose God's people before Christ returns. But wait, there's more. The historical Babylon fell in a very specific way that becomes a template for how John describes the fall of the end times Babylon. And when you see the parallels, you'll understand why this prophecy is so precise and so terrifying. In one night, the greatest empire on earth fell. Sound familiar? Because John's vision of end times Babylon describes a destruction that happens in 1 hour. The template was set. And now we need to figure out what modern empire or system John saw that matches this ancient pattern. Now comes the million-dollar question, or should I say, the trillion-dollar question. When John saw Babylon the Great in his vision, what exactly was he looking at? Here's where biblical scholars have debated for centuries, and I'm going to walk you through the 3 major interpretations. But here's what I want you to watch for. No matter which interpretation you choose, they all point to the same shocking conclusion about timing and sequence. Theory number 1. Literal Babylon. Rebuilt. Some scholars believe John was seeing a literal reconstruction of ancient Babylon in modern-day Iraq. And this isn't as far-fetched as it might sound. In the 1980s, Saddam Hussein spent millions of dollars trying to rebuild ancient Babylon. He saw himself as the new Nebuchadnezzar and wanted to restore Babylon to its former glory. His efforts were interrupted by wars and sanctions. But here's what's fascinating. John describes Babylon as a center of global commerce where the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. That sounds exactly like what an oil-rich, rebuilt Babylon could become. Theory number 2. Symbolic Rome. Other scholars believe John was using Babylon as a codename for Rome. Remember, John was writing during intense Roman persecution of Christians. If he had directly predicted Rome's fall, he would have been executed immediately. John gives us a clue in Revelation 17:9. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. Rome was famously built on 7 hills. Coincidence? Many scholars think not. Rome also fits John's description of Babylon as a persecutor of God's people. During John's lifetime, Rome was literally drunk with the blood of Christian martyrs. But here's where it gets really interesting. If John was describing Rome, then we've already seen this prophecy fulfilled when the Roman Empire collapsed. Which brings us to the 3rd and most compelling interpretation. Theory number 3. A future global system. What if John wasn't seeing a specific city at all? What if he was seeing a global system, economic, political, and religious, that would emerge in the end times? Listen to how John describes Babylon's fall. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off for the fear of her. Torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city, that was clothed in fine linen, and purple, and scarlet, and decked with gold, and precious stones, and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. Revelation 18:15-17. In 1 hour, so great riches is come to naught. Does that sound like the destruction of a single city? Or does it sound like the collapse of a global economic system? Think about our modern world. If the global financial system collapsed tomorrow, if stock markets crashed worldwide, if digital currencies became worthless, if international trade ground to a halt, how long would it take? With modern technology and global interconnectedness, It could literally happen in 1 hour. But here's what will keep you awake tonight thinking about this. John doesn't just describe the fall of Babylon. He describes the reaction of 3 specific groups: kings, merchants, and sailors. And their reactions tell us exactly what kind of system is falling. The kings mourn because they've lost their power. The merchants mourn because they've lost their wealth. And the sailors mourn because they've lost their trade routes. This isn't describing the fall of a single city. This is describing the collapse of a global system that controls politics, economics, and transportation worldwide. And when that system falls, it creates the exact conditions needed for the second part of John's sequence to unfold. The judgment described. Now I'm going to take you inside John's vision and show you exactly how he describes this collapse. But I'm warning you, these aren't the ravings of an ancient mystic. These are the precise words of a man describing something so traumatic that the entire world will watch in horror. Here's how John describes the moment Babylon begins to fall. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Revelation 18:2. Notice that phrase, is fallen. In Hebrew and Greek, repeating something twice indicates absolute certainty. This isn't a possibility or a maybe. This is a divine declaration of something that will absolutely happen. But here's what's really chilling. John describes the speed of this collapse. Therefore shall her plagues come in 1 day, death, and mourning, and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. Revelation 18:8. 1 day, not 1 year, not 1 month. 1 day. But it gets more specific. Listen to this. For in 1 hour is thy judgment come. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. Revelation 18:10, 17, 19. 3 times John emphasizes 1 hour. In the ancient world, that was the shortest unit of time used for measuring events. John is describing the fastest economic collapse in human history. Now, let me show you who's watching this collapse and what their reactions tell us about the scope of this judgment. First, the kings of the earth. And the kings of the earth, who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, shall bewail her and lament for her, when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. Revelation 18:9-10. The world's political leaders are watching from a distance, afraid to get too close. They're not trying to help or rescue the situation. They're just watching in terror, knowing that their own power depended on this system. Second, the merchants. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. Revelation 18:11. John then lists exactly what they were selling: the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones, and of pearls, and fine linen, and purple, and silk, and scarlet, and all thine wood, and all manner vessels of ivory, and all manner vessels of most precious wood, and of brass, and iron, and marble, and cinnamon, and odors, and ointments, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, and wheat, and beasts, and sheep, and horses, and chariots, and slaves, and souls of men. Revelation 18:12-13. Notice that last phrase, and souls of men. This system wasn't just trading in commodities, it was trading in human beings. it was treating people as merchandise. Third, the sailors and sea traders. And every shipmaster, and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? Revelation 18:17-18. Global transportation and trade come to a complete halt. Ships full of cargo sit dead in the water because there's no longer a market for what they're carrying. But here's the most terrifying part of John's vision. He describes the method of destruction. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be, thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. Revelation 18:21. Shall be found no more at all. This isn't describing a temporary recession or a market correction. This is describing the complete and permanent destruction of a global system. Number 2. Judea, Israel. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible. God is going to allow His chosen people, in His chosen land, to face the worst persecution in their 4,000-year history. And according to the prophets, it must happen exactly this way for His ultimate plan to succeed. But before you think God has abandoned Israel, let me show you why this trial is actually the final step in the most incredible rescue plan ever conceived. A world leader emerges who seems to have solutions for everything. He's charismatic, brilliant, and he does something no one thought possible. He brokers a comprehensive peace agreement between Israel and her enemies. Daniel describes this moment, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Daniel 9:27. In biblical prophecy, a week represents 7 years. So this leader guarantees peace for Israel for 7 years. And for the first 3.5 years, everything seems perfect. Israel is secure. They're prosperous. They might even rebuild their temple and resume their ancient sacrificial system. After 2,000 years of persecution, it finally looks like the Jewish people can live in peace. But then, exactly halfway through the 7-year period, everything changes. Daniel continues, And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate. Daniel 9:27. The same leader who guaranteed Israel's peace breaks his promise. He stops the Jewish sacrificial system, sets himself up as God in their temple, and demands that the world worship him. This is what Jesus called the abomination of desolation. And when it happens, Jesus gives very specific instructions to the Jewish people. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. Matthew 24:15-18. Notice Jesus says, flee into the mountains immediately. Don't pack. Don't grab belongings. Don't even go back into your house. Just run. Earth. Have you ever thought about why so many Christians talk about fighting the Antichrist? They talk about standing strong, fighting evil, and going to war against the beast. But what if I told you something that might shake your faith real hard? Jesus never actually told us to fight him. What Jesus really said might shock you. It could change the way you look at the end times. 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4 shows us who he really is, the man of sin, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God. Think about that. He's not just a bad leader or a fake preacher. He's someone who will trick almost the whole world, even some who go to church and think they believe. He'll want something no person should ever ask for. worship that belongs only to God. And the people who won't bow down to him? Let me be clear, he'll try to completely wipe them out. So what are we supposed to do? What did Jesus really say to do when this scary man takes power? That's the question that changes everything. The instruction most miss. Jesus didn't leave us guessing. He didn't want us to make up our own plan. Right in the middle of talking about the scariest time in all of history, Jesus gave us a clear command. Think about that. The Son of God, the greatest warrior, tells his people to run, not to get ready to fight, not to build a defense, but to run away, right away. We live in a world that praises people who stand firm, fight back, and become heroes. But what if I told you that sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is run? Now, this part is really important. Jesus doesn't just suggest leaving. He speaks with urgency. If you're sitting on your roof, don't even go back inside the house. If you're working in the field, leave your coat behind. If you're pregnant or caring for a baby, pray for strength because it will be harder. If it happens during winter or on the Sabbath, it might be almost impossible to escape. In just a minute, I'll explain why this event, the abomination of desolation, makes Jesus speak so strongly. The reason might really surprise you. But first, we need to understand this powerful warning. We're always taught to pray first, right? But here, Jesus already gives the command. There's no time to wait. And here's the serious truth. People who stop to seek God's will in that moment might be disobeying what Jesus already said. While they're praying for direction, while they're gathering their things, while they're saying goodbye, the chance to escape will close. Now listen closely to what Jesus actually says to pray for in verses 20 to 21. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. Did you notice something? He doesn't say, pray it doesn't happen. He says, pray about when it happens. He assumes that you will obey and flee. The only question is, will the timing make it easier or harder? In a few minutes, I'll show you exactly what this abomination of desolation really is and why Jesus sees it as the biggest warning sign. History will make it very clear. And you'll understand why so many good-hearted Christians might miss it. Some believers will think they're being brave by staying to fight. They'll see themselves like David fighting Goliath. They'll quote verses about standing firm. They'll tell others to fight back. But in doing that, they'll be disobeying the clear command of Jesus. This isn't a test of bravery, it's a test of obedience. Here's a scary truth that people don't talk about enough. Even courage can turn into rebellion when it goes against God's command. And Jesus never said, "Blessed are those who fight the beast." He said, "But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved." Matthew 24:13. When the time comes, obedience will be more important than bravery. And faith won't look like fighting. It will look like trusting God as you run. Now I know what you might be thinking. For some, running sounds like fear, like giving up. But think about this. In the Bible, running away was sometimes the most faithful thing someone could do. Joseph ran from Potiphar's wife. He chose to stay pure instead of getting into trouble. David ran from King Saul, even though he had many chances to fight and stop him. Even Jesus, when people tried to push him off a cliff in Luke 4, just walked away. This shows us something powerful that many churches never explain. The goal wasn't to fight. The goal was to finish the mission. There's a time to stand strong, and there's a time to run. And during the time of the Antichrist, Jesus said very clearly, "Run." Now, this is where it gets serious. You'll need wisdom more than ever. Some believers won't listen to what Jesus actually said. They'll say, "We need to fight. We can't back down." And what will they do? They'll pick up weapons. They'll fight against the system. They'll try to stop evil with violence. But have you ever wondered, what will happen to these well-meaning fighters? Revelation 13:7 gives the serious answer. "And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them." Let that sink in for a moment. The Antichrist is actually allowed to win for a short time. Those who try to fight him with human strength, they will be crushed. Why would God let this happen? The answer may surprise you. Because this is not a battle with weapons. It's a spiritual judgment. And the only way to make it through is to follow Jesus. We'll talk about that powerful truth in just a moment. This is where many will get fooled. They will read about the beast, the mark, the image, and think, "We have to stop this ourselves." But that's not what Jesus said. That's not what Revelation teaches. Have you noticed there's no part in Revelation where the church rises up and beats the Antichrist? And here's something most Bible teachers don't say. Only those who practice hearing and obeying God's voice now will be ready for what's coming. But how do believers actually win during this time? Revelation 12:11 gives us a powerful truth. "And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death." Look at what's not there. There's nothing about fighting with weapons, starting a political group, hiding underground. The true believers win in a very different way. Through the blood of Jesus, their bold testimony,